dear Yota, tell me about the Milan Pact.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, Pio, to talk about the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. It's a long name. We can call it MUFPP, it's the acronym, or just the Milan Pact. Now, why we call it the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact? Because it's an initiative that started from the city of Milan. It's the legacy of the Expo 2015.
So this is the reason. Why Milan? Because this would have been my next question. Why Milan and not, I don't know,
Well,
Rome?
you see, it started with a brilliant idea of the previous mayor of Milan, Mayor Pisapia. And it came back from 2013, 14, that there was a group of cities working already on climate. That was the C40 climate group. And there they had this idea not only to work on climate, but also to work with food and cities, because food is interconnected with all different aspects of our life, and especially with the SDGs. So there has been a work for about 2 years, and then there was the occasion also of the Expo 2015 that the city of Milan hosted, and it had a theme that pretty much linked well with food. So that was the occasion, that was the moment.
The trigger factor, basically.
Exactly.
May I ask you a question
Yes.
before entering into the details of around the pact? Just talking about, just for a second, the city of Milan itself. Can you tell us something about the evolution of the consumption systems or patterns in the city? Is there any evolution, any correlation, let's say, within income versus kind of diet, or is there any analysis that, let's say, is how the evolution in a city like Milan of the consumption pattern moved?
Well, I have to say that before 2015, let's start first with the institutional part. The citizens did what they used to do, let's say. Their consumption pattern would have been to go all to the markets or the supermarkets. Of course, we live in Italy, so Milan, together with all other different cities in Italy, have a strong culture, what we call the culture of food. So also wet markets and open street markets were very much used from the citizenship. But the thing is that when the food policy of Milan got established in 2015, with all the advocacy and the works that have been done towards the citizens, they have assumed a more conscious way of dealing with food, so by extension with their consumption patterns.
So this means also that being aware means also it has some relation with, we keep on hearing about Mediterranean diet. Mm-hmm. Is there any correlation with this, or?
We do one of the activities that the city of Milan brings forth is to promote a good nutrition. And of course, the Mediterranean diet makes part of it. So there is this will to help the citizens to understand that eating better has a lot of good impact, let's say, in their everyday life and in their health. Also, the school canteens in Milan, they are very much careful of the food that is being given as a menu to children. Organic rice that has been produced around the city is being used to school canteens. So there is very much attention of giving good and nutritious and safe food to the city.
So is it fair to say that it's a kind of a blend of culture, so traditions, culture, plus awareness in schools and so on. Education, I suppose, is an important aspect.
Yes.
Having more proximity, I heard you were saying producing the rice as is produced in the area, so try to reduce the CO2 footprint, I suppose.
Exactly.
So in a certain way, it's putting together different aspects that are related to both tradition, culture, but also about sustainability of what.
This is exactly what we're trying to do, because the food is so interrelated also with what the municipality is doing, because there are different departments that are dealing with it. And that's one of the recommendations, by the way, of the Milan Pact, to put together different departments of a municipality or a local authority in general to work together for a common scope. For instance, we have seen now that we have the emergency of the pandemic, the COVID-19, that when there was need to give more food to the needy ones, let's say to the more vulnerable groups, but also schools have been closed due to the pandemic. There was a conversion of the agency of the municipality that produces the school meals to give it to those that they needed food and they couldn't go out. By the way, this was an activity that has been done with different actors of the city.
Sure.
For instance, the social services, the health services, the food policy office. So it was something that had to be done together and not anymore in a silos approach.
Okay, basically what you're saying is that on the one hand, the city and the COVID is underlying this, that it works on the inequalities aspect related to food in a systemic manner. This means it's not just a matter of producing and consuming, but there is a lot of other actors in it. So if you would project this a little bit more into the future, the health-related part of the diet, this will become more important, or because in the past it was more kind of cultural, we would say, no?
Yeah.
We were saying, okay, this is part of our culture. We eat risotto, spaghetti, or whatever. Or if you are more in the mountains, potatoes, I suppose. I don't know. But it goes much beyond this, and the feeling is that the health and determinants of health is becoming a key issue for the future. Is it?
It is in a way, because there is more awareness now, and this is something that we just covered before, saying that municipalities are trying to give a good example and to help citizens make informed choices, not only of what they eat, but also to understand what are the implications, the future implications into their health. Not only because if I eat a hamburger right now, then that will not give me the right nutrients to go on, but also to look into the future and look about obesity. Europe has a strong problem with child obesity. To look about the illnesses, diseases like diabetes,
sugar,
heart diseases, etc. So by informing people to eat better, you also pass the message that your health, not only now, but in the future, will be better. So it's a personal choice what you eat, but that personal choice has an impact at the system, at the bigger system, because for countries that they have a welfare system like Italy, there are costs not only for the citizen itself if they get ill of these kind of illnesses, but for the regional and national health system. And this is something that now more than ever citizens do understand.
So it's like saying that actually when you are consuming, I don't know, something that I like it, something with a lot of sugar in it, the real cost of it that we should consider is not just the cost of the product that we are eating, but the consequences that might have this on the long run on your health, and then consider this as a cost.
Exactly. That's why let's just leave Italy for the moment and go to this very recent example of the mayor of London, who a year ago took this bold decision to prohibit the advertisement of fizzy drinks and hot drinks in the entire transport system of London, because they understand that they have to do something in order to help citizens understand. If from one side you're just saying don't drink fizzy drinks because they have a lot of sugar, highly processed foods, etc., but then on the other you just find it everywhere around you.
Well,
that's a very...
With publicity and
exactly, especially at the Tube, which is used by millions of people every day in London. Then it's a contrasting message. So when you have a policy and you are also taking actions to take this policy step by step further, then you get results.
So basically, this comes to the role of the one actor, which is the state, which has to work with incentives and disincentives, so also on the normative part of it.
Exactly.
And this opens up maybe the discussion, a good opening for the Pact discussion, because this is, if I understand correctly, Pact is not about Milan. It's about maybe of the experience of Milan, but it's about the others, right?
Yes, Milan had, as we just said, this good idea, and it brought it with determination ahead. And now the Milan Pact comprises 210 cities all around the world, small cities, medium-sized and even small municipalities that are willing to work towards this transformation of the food system that we are talking about at the global level. So it's not only Milan. It's an agreement, but it's not just an agreement now. It's much more than an agreement, because it's a community. It's almost a movement.
And
if you pass the term.
It's becoming a movement.
Exactly.
A citizen movement.
A citizens movement, but the important thing is that it's led by their municipalities. Because
local authorities.
Exactly, because we understand that the bottom-up approach is very much important, and in fact it's one of the main factors that then help municipalities take what is happening on the ground and make it a policy. So it's important to understand that if there is no political will to bring forth what we are trying to achieve, it's much more difficult. In many different parts of the world, we have seen that they started with specific food projects or initiatives, also helped by different international actors. And then it came a point that the local authorities understood that there is value to it. And so they took it and they made it a policy.
May I say, or is it correct to say that the entry point with municipalities assure that there will be a systemic approach? Because actually you cannot, as I suppose, as a mayor of a city like Milan or another city, you cannot say, okay, this year we will provide you with water, next year with electricity, and in 3 years with for sanitation services. So it's something you have to do it in the same time with the budget that you're having. At the same time, this implies also the trade-off that you have to establish within your own policy.
In fact, the systemic approach to the food system is the basis of the Milan Pact, and in general when we are talking about policies and strategies on the food systems, because we have to understand that food systems are very complex. So a local authority has first to look at its own agenda, because we understand that it's not only food, it's transport, it's
Sure.
waste disposal, they have a full agenda, and to see what are the priorities that they have set as a government, as a local government, and then see where they can go and make even small changes or tricks, because it doesn't have to be something which is huge, because usually we know that huge changes do not happen overnight. We can also try and use this term, agopuncture, in a way. You look where you have a block. Exactly.
I was going to say this.
And then with the right intervention, you can just unlock it.
Exactly.
And so you can work on different, really, aspects. For instance, Milan is working a lot on the food, on the school canteens. There are other cities that they like to work more on the waste disposal. There are others that they have more the water issue.
Sure.
So it's very much, intricate and complex. So it depends.
May I ask you maybe a difficult question? I don't know. If you would have to distillate in one or two sentences what these 200 and more cities do have in common, what makes them being similar in a certain way more than what makes them differentiate? What do they have in common? Why they go together? Is there any common denominator that you can already distillate from the work of the Pact?
Having so many different cities within the Pact, we understand that one thing, for instance, when we gather annually, we understand that there is enthusiasm, willingness to go towards one direction. Of course, not at the same speed. Every city has its own pace and its own issues to solve. But we see when we have these gatherings that there is so much exchange, both at the political and at the technical level. There is so much need to exchange information about how are you doing this thing? How are you dealing with this other? And we have seen that no matter they come from different continents, different countries, etc., they have a common language. Mm-hmm. They have similar procedures. Mm-hmm. And so they want to make this change. So I see that there is this willingness or curiosity in a way, because, of course, in 210 cities and counting, I have to say, because there are more and more cities that they want to join the Pact. There is also curiosity because they see that other cities are getting results out of what they're doing with the food system. So they say, this is interesting. Perhaps I might have not considered it, but it's an occasion now to connect with my peers and understand what they are looking for or what they have achieved. So to see if I can include it into my own technical and political agenda. So,
and if I would have to ask you, you say, okay, they all are curious or willing in different speed but going in the same direction. And the direction is?
The transformation of a food system that now is failing us. We know that it doesn't work. So we have to go to a more sustainable urban food system.
Okay, so we were saying that each municipality goes in maybe different speed. Now, how can you check both the speed and where are they? So what kind of tools is the Pact using to kind of, I suppose, to check how far you've gone, but also to give some elements for the others that they want to join?
Well, that's something that it has been actually asked by the cities because you understand that we have an internal governance structure and we have a steering committee that represents geographically the cities. And actually they were wondering, okay, if we start to working on our food policy, then how do we know if we're making any progress or even not? And we got together with other international partners, such as the FAO, and the RUA Foundation. And we came up with an initial list of 144 indicators just for the food system. In fact, that was not feasible. So we worked for another 6 months together with the cities, because
and you
while we
boiled
were
it down
to 44 indicators, which is a much better number.
It's kind of doable.
Exactly. And we have we went to 2 pilot phases, 1 and 2. So different cities in the world tried them to see if it works. Came back, said this works, this doesn't.
Yeah.
And so we came up with this framework of indicators that's now it's out there. Cities are using it, and also not only to measure what is happening on the ground, to compare with other cities, and also to see for a municipality where funds and financial resources should be put, rather than on this aspect or on the other. You know, if you are taking informed decisions with data at hand, you have to have something. And so the indicators help towards that direction.
So this frame is valid both for Milan and, let's say, Freetown?
Exactly. That's why it took us almost 1.5 years to produce it. It's statistically sound. It contains both qualitative and quantitative data. We have tried to make it as simple as possible, but it's very efficient, because, you know, that's also another issue that cities have, and we understand it's very practical, because everybody comes and asks for any kind of different data. And cities really say, well, we cannot start collecting data just for that.
For the sake of it.
Exactly. So we're trying to use data that a city already produces.
And that makes sense.
Exactly. So we have the 44 indicators, and they have an annex, a technical annex of goes from 5 to 8 pages. So it explains exactly how it has to be used. And of course, we're always open for help and assistance if a city wants to take more information.
Is the frame or the tools they are available, accessible, and I don't know, in a website or?
Yes, it's everything on the website, and
which is website? What's the name of the website? So for
Milan Urban Food Policy Pact.org. It's quite long but easy once
once you know it.
You know it exactly. Let me just add, if I may, one last thing.
A pitch.
Yes, the exchange of practices among cities. This is something that we see that it works perfectly. We have one tool for that, which is called the Milan Pact Awards. And it's a system that cities give us the best practices that they work on every year. It's a scheme that goes on every year. And in our annual meeting, they get a small premium, which is not much. It's a financial help that just helps them to that practice that that won then gets replicated to another city that they decide. So they just pass on the knowledge, and this is something that we saw that it works really well. Well, actually, I have to say that it's also word of mouth. Because cities, in fact, we don't go around saying we are the Milan Pact and come join us. It's cities themselves that they talk to each other and say, if you're working on this, look at this network of cities, because they're doing things that are interesting. It helps us. It has no fees, no implications in that sense, and everything is voluntary. It's not a binding agreement. They don't have to comply with specific, terms within certain time. So it's just a network of cities that they feel that they're working for their common cause.
So is nudging one to each other is the terms instead of propaganda or pushing and pulling. Is a more kind of gentle nudging.
Yeah, and we see that it works.
It works.
So I think one after the city in in Switzerland will be joining.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Do you think the speed is fast enough
For what?
to save the planet?
Well, we are a little bit behind schedule, if I have to be honest. But it's in our hands to decide if we want to just gear up a little bit. Perhaps the international processes might help us in this sense, because right now we see that cities are taking a prominent role in these processes, and perhaps there will be time where we can really cities, citizens, and all different actors, we will really realize that we cannot go like this anymore. And perhaps this is the time that we saw with COVID. What acceleration it gave us, because things that have happened now, it has been 30 years that we have been advocating, and now cities and all different actors, what did they do? They just implemented what the theory was saying all these 30 years and more. So I think we might have this opportunity out of a crisis to accelerate for a better food system in the future.
Thanks. Let's hope it works fast and furious. Thanks.
Let's hope. Thank you.